Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 2022 NAB AFL Draft Preview. I'm your host, Terry. I've got Pommy with me. Mate, it is good to be back.
Mate, you've had a holiday, and it's great to have you back, first and foremost. We've missed you. I think I speak for everyone. It's been weird, this. We haven't had Blue Abroad. That's probably the longest you haven't posted for, 5 years?
Definitely. I had a look. I think it's been 2 months since I sat down and pre-recorded a video. I think I did a few of the lives, but no, it was good. Got back this morning, feeling a little jet lagged. That'll probably take a few days, but yeah, it was good to disconnect. I think also had to disconnect. So for those playing along at home, you would see Instagram was completely silent since Wednesday. So my phone was stolen. Believe that. I was laying in the sun, fell asleep, got woken up to a guy telling me, yo, someone's got your phone, and whatever. Forced disconnection and forced to get off the grid for a few days.
He did a Jake Paul. I got your heart. But he did it with your phone. Quality work.
Yeah, but
where was that? What town? What town are we avoiding?
Well, that was actually on the beach of Tel Aviv.
So you lived there for 2 years, did videos, never got robbed, and you go as a tourist and look what happens.
That's life. I think I say it all the time on the channel. Life hits you straight in the face, and it's a humbling. But anyway, mate, we're back. Good to have you back. Good to be back with you tonight. The purpose of this show is the lead up into the draft tomorrow. And what we're going to do tonight is we're going to do our annual Blue Abroad draft preview. We're going to do it live. We're going to do it all in one. We've got 4 picks to cover. You're going to give us 5 names per pick as you do every year. I'll tell you what, a bit of pressure because you get it right. I'm pretty sure you've nailed our pick every single year.
Yeah, we've had a few rookie picks as well in there. We do pretty well. We do well. We're pretty good at this now. We're getting older. I've got to say though, it's great to see the navy blue corner. Nathan Seppi as well, just starting to get involved, because usually it's just me, and it's been good. It's given me a second win this year. It's given me a second win to see people take to this. So I'm excited about doing it because it's been good hearing everyone else as opposed to hearing myself.
Well, so what we'll do is I thought about it. Let's go from our latest pick until our earliest pick. So we've got 4. I'm going to let you take the reins. I'll probably butt in and ask some common folk questions. But essentially, why don't you give us the final situation before tomorrow? Well, what is the situation with the picks heading into tomorrow, barring a last-minute trade, which I know has been on the cards in the media, but not sure how much weight and gravity there is to that happening.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, but I mean, obviously, as it stands at this stage, Carlton will be going into the draft with 10, 29, 49, 64 and 74. Interesting, though, that one of them picks will be burned, we presume, for Mr. Owies. He has to come off the Cat B. He's served his time, so he will go onto the primary list, and Carlton will use one of them list spots to do that. And Carlton will presumably rookie, is the rumours, Ed Kerner, which should then leave Carlton with 5 list spots available. We don't predict that they'll take all them picks. I'd imagine Carlton, they're very genuinely usually leave one open just in case of last minute injuries. And when you're using 66 and picks like that, you're dart throwing. Let's be honest, it's a hit or miss. So it's a logical thing. So we're going to start in that reverse order with pick 49. And the first guy we're going to look at is a guy that we've talked a lot about on this show, and has become a personal favourite as mine as well as this kid. For those who are wondering, we did get to interview him the other day. He's one of the most loveliest human beings in the world. But this is Thomas Scully from West Adelaide. He's a key position forward. Coming from a wonderful stock down in South Australia as well. He's really stood out there. 50 goals this year in under 18s, over 2 goals a game, a natural goal kicking machine. probably one of the cleanest kicking actions as well in the AFL. It was very consistent. If you watch that interview, he talked about he spent a lot of time learning that kicking routine. That has become a religion. Him and Lemmy and the other tolls there, they focus heavily on his kicking technique. But a real good project, and a lot of people worried about our key forward stocks. We've only got 2 recognised ones on the list. Tom Scully fits the bill of a guy that's not ready now, but a guy that you can put some time into. And I think he will be a lot higher when you redo this draft in 5-10 years.
Where would he rank? So he's a forward, right?
Yep, key forward, yep.
Where would he rank in the best key forwards in the draft, this tomorrow's draft?
Probably about 4 or 5.
Okay.
You'd say Jefferson and Cadman, obviously, well ahead of him on form, on complete ability. But I would say that the reason that they're a lot higher than him is that they're more plug and play than Tom. Tom's still got a bit of work to do. Body size. He was very humble. If you listen to his interview, he talks about the professionalism outfit, which has been a huge rumor in South Australia. He's unprofessional. You talk about how he's been working on that and how he's really got that down pat, and the nutrition side of things and the recovery. So he's hungry to learn, and you can see he's hungry to really get in the AFL. And he's a kid here who's got incredible talent. And I think Voss bands about Carlton's culture. So does Cookie. They all say the culture's changed. Now it's the time that you put that to the test, because that's why Geelong are superior to everyone else, because they can take players late and they develop them with an insane culture. And Tom Scully is a guy that, if you're looking for a key forward, very strong in the air, incredible defensively, clean goal kicking technique, back your system in.
All right, cool. Who else have we got?
We love a bit of Tom. Get around Tom as well. He's one of the most loveliest human beings that I've got to say. Real nice guy. But we move to Pom's favourite place, Tasmania. I will get a Tasmanian on Carlton's list before I die. And this gentleman here, Mr. Seth Green, this kid here has got something. Now, a lot of people are talking about we're looking for forwards, 182, 73 kegs. This guy here was a very late call-up to the combine, which usually is an indicator that someone is sniffing about him. Now, plays in that small forward position, does like to go up the ground, and did have a couple of 30-plus games this year. And the week before the National Combine, kicked 10-6. Let that sink in.
Well,
10-6. He's got all the tricks in the book as well. He's a very, very elusive player, very strong. He likes to crumb. He's got a load of tricks, and he's got very, very, very good goal sense. And what is most amazing, and like all Tassies, and this is something that you look out for Tassie Devils, he does the team thing first. And he loves the handball over the top to someone waiting in front. He's very clever as well when he's lined up for the set shot. He's had a lot of goal assists this year. Just takes the pace off and dinks it over the man on the mark. So very high scope. And this is where you do throw a dart at a smaller player. And Seth Green, for me, I think that's the one thing. And I'd love to know what Chat's opinion is. I think the worst thing about us is we don't have a natural goal kicking small. We have a lot of pressure based, and Jesse Motlop has the potential, but we don't have enough goals coming from them. And this guy's a goal first forward.
Mm-hmm. Bugs Bell literally read my mind. You mentioned Tasmania. Is there something to be cautious of and be mindful of, knowing that they will have their own team in the next, 5 or so years, whatever it's going to be? Is that a factor for us right now, or do you just back in your environment?
I always think weak clubs worry about stuff like that. That's what weak clubs do. And you look at the clubs where players leave traditionally. A lot of Victorians leave clubs like Western, like North Melbourne. You see the South Australians, but then you also see a lot of Victorians leave Gold Coast. These are poorer clubs. If you're winning premierships, is Seth Campbell at 21 going to want to go home and be a bottom feeding team just to say he's played at home? I would say the bigger risk for Tasmanians would be 28, 29, that age bracket, who are like, you know what, I've won a few things. Be nice to set up my hometown team. And I think you've got to back your system in, because at the end of the day, in my opinion, if you've got a good culture, history will show players don't leave. And that's what we've got to focus on. If you start, I would be very worried if Carlton Football Club ever said we didn't draft this player because of the go-home factor when they've told me their culture's good. If your culture's good, they don't want to leave. And I back our boys in. I think Seth is an intelligent boy. I haven't spoken to this guy personally, but all the interviews I've seen, he seems a very acquitted, and Tasmanians are built to know they're moving into state. It's the only place without a team. So if Seth Campbell's homesick, he's playing the wrong sport, isn't he, at the moment? I mean, maybe in 3 years' time we'll have that discussion, but I'd imagine this kid knows he's playing football in interstate. And let's hope he's at Carlton. He's a very talented boy. Very talented boy.
I like this. I like the sound of him.
Mate, he's got something about him. He's got something about him.
All right.
Well, where are we now? You got me talking now. You got me excited. I'm in the draft mode.
Draft mode.
Mate, draft mode, baby. Well, this one here, I like this guy, Jason Gillbee. In the Australian shirt there, played against Collingwood in the academy. Now, this guy here this is, in my opinion, this is the safest pick around 49. He's scheduled to go anywhere from 40 to 50. There is some rumours he'll go higher, but I genuinely don't see that. But this guy is the purest sense of a utility. He has played everywhere. He has played third toe down back and forward. He's played in the key positions, pinch hitting the ruck at times for the Allies, and played on and outside the bow. So this is a real project. And we know that historically Vossi likes these players. Port have a lot of these players. But this guy here has got, he does a lot of community work, first of all, off the field. He's really highly regarded for the time he spends with the juniors in the under-16s, under-14s program. So he loves to give back, which is a string to his bow. But he's got an incredible engine, very clean hand and foot skills, and he's also got the ability to be above average for his age group in all the positions we've mentioned as well. And he's travelled around a bit as well. He actually represented the Allies, but then had a Vic Country game as well, got special permission to change states. So he's moved around a lot as a kid as well. So the going home factor is a bit lesser with this guy. But this guy here is a complete player, can play all sorts. I think his best position is probably one of them third positions as like a swingman. But there is definitely scope in 5 years, in 3 or 5 years, for him to maybe go on the ball. But kind of think of him like an Audi Blitzars at Geelong at the moment. There's a very similar thing there. Big guy, 190 centimetres, big body, who's got steeplechase engine with good skills. So a real nice little string to Carlton's bow there.
Very, very interesting. Yeah, the height with the mobility is always an interesting one, especially with the way the game is going now.
Spot on, mate. I mean, you look at the AFL now, everyone's getting taller. Like we took the piss 2 years ago with Nick Blakey having a giant 6'8" wingman. And now everyone's got 6'8" wingman. It's becoming a new thing. We laughed at it at first. Nick Cox, how many bits of banter have we given about them having a key forward playing on the wing? But that is becoming in vogue. And a lot of these teams will have, and we keep saying it, a swingman is so incredibly important with the way the AFL interchange bench works, because it allows you to have a more impactful player. And Geelong model that as well with their interchange. If you look at their interchange times, they always play a specialist who plays a little bit less minutes who can impact the game. And Jason would allow that in a couple of years. He's a good kid. Good kid.
All right. I like it. Who's next?
Mate, we like these low ones. These ones are the exciting ones. This kid here has been my favourite for a long time. I've talked about him a lot, and I had the privilege of him giving me his time. I think that was the only interview as well, just between you and me, he gave. But Jakey Walker here, this guy is a tough, the way I describe him, a tough Paddy Dow. A very tough physical Paddy Dow. So he's very physical. He embraces the tackle. And when I interviewed him, the greatest thing was his eyes lit up when I said, when you tackle people, you hurt them. And his eyes lit up. He was like, yes. Like, that was the first time I got him out of his shell. He's a bit of a psychopath the way he plays, but loves the contested stuff, loves the defensive running, an inside midfielder who has got a bit of zip as well. He loves to break away, and he's a Route 1 footballer. And I want to refer to Vossi this week. Vossi gave us a really good inclination, which was basically translated in layman's terms that we will be picking up some midfielders to maximize and change the dimensions, it was the words he used, the makeup of our midfield. And that's, I've been saying this all year last year. Kennedy, Cripps, Hewett, playing repetitive players like that don't win your flags. You need a Paddy Dow type that gets the ball on the boot. The issue with Paddy Dow is he's shortened his disposals as he's gone on to try and improve his disposal accuracy. What Jake Walker does is what I think Vossi, if he was here, would say, that's what I need. I need someone who's going to get the ball and go route one with penetration. Get that to the edge of the square sometimes, because Carlton are nuanced and they mess around with the ball. Jakey Walker here is that boy. He gets the ball, sees an opening, has the breakaway speed, and when this kid kicks the ball, it's a bit like when you're tackled, he stays hit. He's a great little kid as well. He's a very excitable chap.
Yeah, it's a bit more direct. And it's quite unique that there's going to be quite a few of these names tonight that you'll read out who you've actually spoken to. So not only do they get we've done this for a few years. Every year it's a little speculative, but to have that extra layer of information about their personalities it just gives us a little bit more information to make a better educated guess.
Mate, he's a really lovely boy. He was a boy, when I was talking to him, I instantly thought of Walsh when we went to the BNF. The fact he was shy, but he was confident, but he didn't want to say he was really good. And I was like, you know what? Imagine you working with Cripper and putting his arm around you and Walshy and you building that social confidence, because everyone in this chat, there's a lot of names and a lot of familiar faces. You all complain about missed tackles. This guy prides himself on he hurts people when he tackles them. And it's a joy to watch. Go and watch his highlight reel. He loves digging. So I could see it. Collingwood Carlton, round 23. Jamie Elliott gives it the big one and he walks into Jake Walker and Jake Walker lays him down and gets stuck into him.
All right. And the final guess, or the final suggested pick for pick 49?
Final guess. It would have been good if I'd have hidden these and just brought them out. Brought them out for 5 minutes. This guy here been heavily talked about. If you have watched them draft videos, literally every Victorian mentions Blake Drury and the media don't. And they all say he's the hardest working forward they've ever seen. And he prides himself on his professionalism. And you see it in the way Blake plays. He's had the privilege as a junior of working with some of the best starters and Wardlaw. He's in the leadership group as well. 176, 73 kegs. He's very lightweight. Scope to move into the back into the midfield. He's kind of been forgotten, but his junior coach said that he was very similar to a guy called Jack Higgins, if you've met him. If you're familiar with him, with how he plays as a forward. He's not the quickest, but his speed of thought is incredible. And what Blake does as well defensively is impeccable. But it's the fact he makes himself available. And that's what he stands out, particularly I understood why the kids mention this kid a lot, because he's always on the move. He's always making himself available. He's always looking to impact, and he doesn't stop, and he's a ball of energy. And I think Carlton really do need a point of difference, not just in the midfield, which I agree with Vossi. I think we need a point of difference in the forward, because at the moment, in my opinion, Jesse Motlop is the only game-winning small forward we've got. Owies, I see as a stopgap, and Durden will probably become that defensive pressure. So I think Carlton are lacking that point of difference, and he's in that pick. Blake, he's got the work ethic, and that's something they all said. I think it was Ollie Hotton who said that Blake Drury was probably the most improved, that he's always got something new every week, and that's what you want, and that's something that I think suits the role at Carlton. Voss wants development and you to be in charge of it, and Blake's got that. And watch him play. He plays very smooth mover. Okay.
So those are 5 names for pick 49. For those of you playing along at home, let us know in the comments, of those 5 names, which one is your favorite? I'm a little torn between Scully and Walker.
Yeah, I can't pick between them.
I do understand the need for a forward of the future. Charlie and Harry, they're in their prime now. It'd be good to have a project, working beside them, working with our defenders as well in Wiedering and the like. There's something about Walker that I like. You sort of convinced me about him.
Yeah, it's a tough one because these were two that I fell in love with when I chatted to them. Like,
Right.
I got dad vibes. My dad's side came out, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, you guys better be picked up, otherwise I'm going to go and punch list managers." I'll go Scully. I think Scully is a dying need, and hopefully Walker comes to Carlton's VFL when he has 2 years, and we give him a cuddle and give him a list spot in 2 years.
A few guesses here. Daniel says Walker. Bug says Scully. Lone Wolf wants Walker as well. Lou says we need a backup tall forward. We sure do. Peter. Scully or the small forward. I think Durden has shown he can be an explosive goal kicker, but he's certainly fallen away from what he showed early. Paul Harvey wants Scully. Wowdy, good evening to you. He says Scully. So, all right, Scully and Walker. Interesting. All right, let's go up. Pick 29. Who are the 5 names there?
Well, we'll start in reverse order. And this guy here, you must have all heard of. So there's a chance here. This guy here is probably the asterisk. There is rumours that he will go earlier than that, but most draft boards have him in the safe 20 to 30 category. Depends what Collingwood do. But this is Trent's kid, half Pie, half Carlton. Much to my depression, he is a Collingwood fan. He is a pure Collingwood fan. So, but this kid here can play football, and he knows football, and he is a very modern day, high energy type midfield forward who has got incredible elusiveness. He's very Tuck Miller around forward half stoppages as well. A real incredible threat. A lot of goals coming from there as well. He's a little menace, and you see his highlight reel. This guy is IQ. He's got a degree in football, and just watch the interview with him. He's a very assured, very intelligent young man who lives and breathes football, and it's his dream to play AFL footy. And we had a bit of a joke about him being a Maggie, but you could see that he would be honoured to play for Carlton. So he suits the bill as that kind of, I think this guy here, I think the biggest weakness with Carlton's forward line is having an out-and-out goal kicker. I agreed with Dynamic, who said that Durden did have explosiveness goals, and I agree, and I think it's fallen off. I think if Always is not there, though, he's going to have to focus on defending. And then I think the weakness for me is Jack Martin. Can Jack Martin stay fit, and does it work well? I think that's a big conduit Carlton miss. And Ollie Hotton, with the size and shape of him, could be that conduit Carlton need, who's that stopgap. An absolute wonderful human, and I'm a big fan of this kid. Big fan.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to ask you about like the durability piece, and then I kind of realized like, I mean, the healthiest under 18 player can be drafted tomorrow, and they could have 2 or 3 full seasons and then start getting injured afterwards. But like, how much can you really determine about a player's durability before they're drafted?
Well, it's tough. I mean, because a lot of the guys that are injured and have had long injuries this year, they're freak accidents. They've been on field issues. Like the big one who is not named in this one, but would be a guy I'd consider, is Braden George, who had a hyperextension of the knee. He came back, kicked 4 goals, and then 5 minutes to go in the 5 minutes into the first quarter of the next game, he did his ACL, and it was heartbreaking. But Braden George, for me, is the number 1 small forward. Even he's Sheasel-esque. He's that good. But that year out. So that may cross Austin's mind. I don't think it will, and that's why I haven't had him, because I think durability is going to be a number 1, and the fact Carlton would get him for a year, they'll probably won't play him, and I think that's a risk. But I think Ollie Hotton, he keeps himself sharp. He was proud to say he was straight back into the training. He's a very sharp kid, and he's got some great people around him, like Trent playing all them games for Collingwood and Carlton. He knows football, and his family are all footballers. So he's got a very professional outfit, and I think he's a safe pick. Safe pick.
All right. Next up, what do we got? Jaxon Binns?
Oh, this kid here. Tell you what, he can play cricket. He can play football. Now, if you're wanting we're going to talk about someone soon who is a bit of a winger. This guy here is a very aggressive winger, is Jaxon Binns. Very, very aggressive. And he's a ball accumulation genius as well. And if you watch his last month, it was insane, right? And everyone's started to talk about him, but they don't talk about him enough for me. His incredible year has been nothing but consistent. And this is another guy all the draftees have talked about a hell of a lot, because they're like, how is he not being talked about? He's in shape, he's quick, he learns, he's accurate, and he's pure aggression. And I think if I'm Vossi, I'd want this kid, because we don't have a winger who can play across high half forward, who hurts teams as much as this guy does. And it's his work rate. If you watch the last game he played for Metro Country in the final, he gets the ball, he handballs it, and he is bursting past the ball carrier. He doesn't stop. This kid's got endurance, and he's a very switched on, and he's excelled every level he's played at. He has excelled, and he's a natural winner, and he's a guy that I think Carlton will look at and go, when we talk about disposal efficiency, wingers that go over 20 touches, it starts to drop when they have high meters gained. This guy has huge meters gained. He's a very Carl Amon type player. That he's like, get ball, deep entry, get ball one way, no sideways, one way, and he runs back and he works defensively hard. Elite player.
I like the trait that you just described, somebody who has a character in which you put them in an environment, and every time they seem to elevate themselves and they go into a new environment and work their way up. I think that's a really good character trait.
Mate, spot on. And this is another kid that we asked about disposal efficiency, because a few of them have been mentioned. Bailey Humphrey was very open about it and said it wasn't something that AFL recruiters look for, because they understand the position of what they're in. So a lot of them knocks I've seen have come from, I don't want to downplay them, they've come from people's opinions, but they're not professional opinions. They are an opinion on maybe a handful of games. If you look at Binns, looking on Champs data, it's around the mid-60s mark, which for someone that kicks 90% of the time, I don't care who you are, Tom Mitchell, Jack McRae, if you're kicking that much when you get the ball, your disposal efficiency is always going to be low. It's harder to kick than handball. And a big thing, and this is why we talk about Dow's disposal efficiency, everyone goes on about, has improved because he's shortened his disposal, where that's negating his skill. His skill is taking meters gained. That this guy here is going to bomb it in, the ball hits the deck, and that's when you're saying Motters, Owies, crumb the ball. And yes, that'll go down as a disposal, not effective kick, but he's going to create chaos. And this guy is chaos personified. Huge fan of Jaxon Binns. And list managers will kick themselves when he goes mid-20s. Like at the moment, he's 28, 29, 32, I've seen on some professional boards. Mental. This kid can play.
Okay. I like it. Next up, I like this name. How do you pronounce it? Max Gruzewski?
Yeah, they are. You did it better than I did anyway. I would have absolutely massacred it. So. But this kid here, again, another tall utility. Now, playing in the same team as starters, he's played against some top players as well this year down the back. Huge engine, can play key defender and key forward. Currently standing at 193 and a bit. That's the official measurement as well, and a bit he's wrote there. But he is a very, very talented footballer. He's composed, incredible skills. Now, this is where you're looking at disposal efficiency. Your guys that are potentially going to turn your game around. This is where Carlton do struggle in them key ball users, particularly in Voss's game. But this guy's strong, can play tall, even at 192, can play the tall guys, and has had success against some of the best talls in the comp who are coming in here. But he's also incredibly good at using the ball. And this could be a guy that Carlton look at. And I want to cast your mind. We're going to just set the scene for we have got some talk. I've seen a lot of questions about Sydney's picks. Now, there could be a thought here from Nick Austin. And Nick Austin's a very clever cat. Let me take you back to the 2018 draft. Most people had Caldwell above. Caldwell suited their needs, Doggy's needs. And he did surprise many, including Mr. Kaltoumi, that he went Bailey Smith. Now, some said that there was not much, but he backed it in. He was very, very early on that. And you look at their trades after that, that was around the time Dunkley requested the trade the first time. And he did explain that gives them some protection. Carlton, this time next year, with their out of contracts, have a lot of unrestricted agents that play where this kid could play in that third tall, moving into that tall position. And that could be what Austin's thinking. If I give a future second away, maybe I can sneak a future second back next year when these guys are traded out. So very interesting. But Max here, this kid can play football. Very, very good kick of the football. Very Mitch McGovern down back.
Okay. I do like the sound of him.
He's got and he's learning the forward as well. He's not so good at the forward, but he has kicked goals. Still got to, it's a bit like watching Mitch McGovern when he first became back. You can see he's a little bit lost of what side to be, but I think they've tried that with Kemp, and I don't think that's Kemp's best position. So I think Max, because he's been learning it all year, that's probably the way you go.
Okay. This one here, Henry Hustwaite, is a popular name that popped up, but he just got pipped. Actually, Nathan Seepy, who I should give a shout out to, who wrote our articles for the website, initially had Henry in one of his draft spotlights and took him out because the demand for Hollands was just too strong. So what is it about Henry, Pommy?
Well, I mean, this kid here is something special. Now, this interview that I did with Henry was one of my favorite interviews in the way that we had a bit of a laugh about the S word. Now, Terry's going to love this conversation because Terry's like me, can't stand speed, can't stand it. Worst thing we hear, because speed without purpose is useless.
Yes.
And Henry's been criticised for his speed, and he had a big grin on his face when I said, when we look at the best midfielders, the last two Brownlow winners have also been considered incredibly slow and have also been criticised in their draft for being slow. And the best players in the world think fast, and that's what Henry does. Henry has played on the ball. He's also played outside. He's played intercept third down the back. And he requested that, which was interesting. He said that was kind of him and his coaches conspired and had that discussion he wanted to learn down back. And he's very smart there because he knows that when he comes into the AFL, he isn't going to play on the ball. And he's a tall player who has learned some defensive craft, 194, 84 kegs already. And when you're compared by the draft gurus, right, as Scott Pendlebury clone, I usually laugh at them things, but when you watch him play, just watch how he's kind of so blasé in the contest. It's almost like he's taking the piss. He's just like wandering around, and it's like he's in the Matrix. People are flying past him. He just buys time. He's so assured and composed. It's incredible to watch.
Interesting. I like thinkers. You know this. You're right. A lot of people over the journey have commented on the need for speed, and we don't have quick players that run the ground quick enough. I come from a school of thought that the ball moves quicker than the man, and speed without you mentioned it just then. Speed without purpose, I don't think is anywhere near as valuable as what we need. We need better ball users,
mate. And this kid as well. When you watch Mr. Henry play, you see he's thinking before he's got the ball. So there's some great vision of the country game that he played. I think it's round 6, round 5, but he's on the ball predominantly, and you can see he's looking and he's spotting the runner before he's taken it, and he hits him. He's an incredible footballer who I think, working with power, working with Vossi, very similar type physicality to Cripps. Mate, this would be an upgrade. This would be an upgrade on say, Kennedy. And this is what I'm trying to think. We're at the situation now where some of the players who play today are going to be investments for this club in 2 years' time. So you look at that midfield now, Kennedy is probably the one that you would maybe have to sell. If you had to sell one of them at the moment, he probably is it, because he's the one who's quite good at this and quite good at that. But I think we'd all accept, when fit, Hewett, Walsh, Cripps are above him. So that is when maybe that's where Austin thinks, you know what, Kennedy plays 20 games next year. We build this guy a bit of size, give him some games in the back end of the year. Maybe we test the waters. If we can get a late first for Kennedy, boom, we're back in the draft, baby, after getting Sydney's pick. So these are the things that we've got to start thinking. How good's that? We're thinking about planning for the future, ladies.
I know. It's good. It's good.
Hey, how good's this? Hey, this
We're
is where
ready.
I've
We're
always
ready
wanted
to
be.
start. Correct. No, it's a different mentality now because the crux of everything is here. So now there is a little bit more room for strategic thinking in these situations.
Spot on. And honestly, it's one of them things. It's them big bugbears, the speed. Just let's stop saying speed because otherwise we'll get Usain Bolt. And would you trust Usain Bolt on the ball? He's quick. But no, Henry Hustwaite, really nice kid as well. Honestly, really, really nice kid.
Okay. The final player for pick 29 is Darcy Jones. Before that, Sayaf, good evening to you. It's good to see you here. Pommy, Darcy Jones. I've got a few already that are at the top of my my list. What can you tell me about Darcy Jones that's going to impress me?
Okay, you know what I said about speed? Throw it in the bin for just this one.
Okay.
But this kid here, we talked about big men. We talked about big midfielders. There's also a great argument that small midfielders are becoming in vogue. So, as well, the speedy type guys. And if Voss is looking for a point of difference, here's your point of difference. Darcy Jones, incredibly quick. And even though he's 175 and 70 kegs, don't let that deceive you. This kid is one of the most toughest 70 keg guys and 175 I've seen. He, for some reason, his core strength is insane. And he just bounds off players. And he takes the game on and he needs an inch. And he has played in Colts. He has played State League. He has played against men in the for Swans District in Waffle. And he has played football. He has stood out. So don't think, you just imagine putting 10 kgs on the guy. If he can go up against men who are angry, and that was some good insight with these kids. When you play seniors as a draftee, they hate you because they're like, Tom Scully was great about it, saying he doesn't know where these physicality rumors come from. Because when he goes and plays Sandful, he's playing Sandful reserves, and it's usually 25-year-old men who are jealous they never got the opportunity. So they're straight into him, giving him it and, trying to unsettle him. Bailey Humphreys plays country league football, and he's like the big I am when he goes there. So these people go to hurt him. So Darcy Jones being able to stand out at waffle level is impressive. And this is a kind of guy that I could see being that high half forward, that smaller role. That kind of Tom Papley's made that very in vogue at the moment. That smaller guy that uses his pace to beat you to the falling ball. And Darcy Jones, incredibly talented footballer.
Right. Okay. So out of those 5 names, those of you at home, which one is your favorite? Or if you have another one is suggested. Pommy, I went into this pick saying Ollie Hotton for sure, because you've mentioned him throughout the year. Obviously, you've interviewed him. Good interview. Something about that Binns boy. Don't know. Something about I'm all about the characters and the ones that can think under pressure. And of what you've explained about all of them, Hotton and Binns are the ones for me. I'm gonna go to Binns. What about you guys at home? And you, Pommy, as well. Who would you pick?
Because who are we taking at 10? I'm taking his Bezzy, Binnsy. I'm taking Jaxon Binns, mate. Honestly, there's something about him, and I just think that just interviewing him today, even though he's a Richmond fan, everyone's got something wrong with them. But do you know what I mean? That's his cross to bear. He's a Richmond fan, but he is incredibly, incredibly talented, incredibly switched on.
Out of the 5 that you've just mentioned, which one do you think has the most potential to go early and get nabbed up before pick? Hotton. Okay.
Hotton. I would say Hotton's the risk purely because Collingwood are so into him. And you're looking at their picks, depends what Pies do. I reckon that Pies may take him a bit earlier, but there is a good chance that looking at how the draft is, and there is huge rumours, and I will guarantee you now that in the 20s, players will start picking. So Richards is linked with Collingwood, and Collingwood have been quite open that they will take him early. If Richards goes, he's around 40, 45 on most draft boards. that shifts someone down. And I guarantee the top 10 at the moment, there is going to be a shock. And we discussed it early that there'll be a dropper, and we suggested Status with North's trade, maybe it. It looks like Status already is falling. And once Status starts to fall, players around 8, 9, 10 going to have questions when they're like, shit, do we take him? Like, how is he here? And once that happens, the world opens up, and we see it all the time in drafts. So I think he could be.
Okay. So the next 2 picks, what have you done here? You've looked at 14 and 10.
Yeah. So the rumors are, and we're good at this. Terry and me did a show. I think it was the end of season, the first Monday show. And
2-3 months ago, mate.
Yeah, and the first suggestion I remember giving you was a future second and a future and this year's second. So 2 seconds for pick 14, which actually is overs. It's 200 points over. So I think that could be a deal. Carlton could also maybe look at a future first. I think personally they would go the future first option, because this time next year it's midfielders, where if Carlton finish top 4 and we don't need them. So I think Carlton maybe will look at that future first for that. Happy days. Maybe help them out with a later pick to try and compensate. But 14 looks like Carlton are hot into it, and it makes sense. And I've picked players that could be around that 14, 16 mark where their picks are. We've gone with 14, but don't be surprised. Nick Austin knows what he's doing. And I expect... It was funny. Voss said we'd like 3 picks inside 30. That was what we said that week. If we can get 3 picks, and I made a mistake, I promised you a flag. So if we have that, we have a flag. Pom said
That's not like you. That's not like you to promise a flag.
Well, I mean, last time I went early on Kurnos. So, I mean, there we are. Could happen again.
All right. So let's have a look at who would be available at pick 14.
Okay. Well, the first guy, here he is. And we've talked about this kid. And if Lachie Cowan is watching this, you've broken my heart, because I tell you what, you were the one guy I wanted and I couldn't. This guy's, I don't know if Tasmania have social medias. I'm assuming they don't. He was so hard. I've tried to track down. I've called favours. But this kid here, what a player. Now, we look at Carlton, and my thinking is this, that transition is really, really incredibly important to Mr. Vossi's game. And when he's talking about creating that rotation, I thought that was really interesting when he said he wanted some points of difference in the midfield and expand the rotation. I think that's where Carlton really got unstuck last year, because injuries started to hit and the rotation started, but then they stopped and we kind of got a bit stagnant. And I do love Doc in the midfield. Now, Lachlan Cowan here, this kid knows football. Incredible booming touch, booming kick, hard work rate, loves his intercept mark. Got a little bit of Tom Stewart about him, of how he intercepts and gets involved in the midfield. Almost plays as that intercept third with the rebounding capabilities of a small, but also the ball use of a midfielder. And when we talk about Sard's woof, you see this kid play and everyone goes, oh, Sard doesn't kick it far enough. This guy kicks it over the G.
Uh-huh.
He's got a big peg. When he kicks it, it's kicked.
How tall is he?
He's fairly big, actually, as well. He's only 180. He's 188. He's that about 188, 190. So you probably say he'll top out about 190. But he plays like that small. And this is how they're playing now, these modern day, these interceptors and these players. This guy is strong in the air, incredibly strong on the deck, plays like a small, but can match it with that third. And gives me Aaliyah. Watching him for the Tassie, it's like Aaliyah when he played Carlton when we had Teague. He just seems to be everywhere. He's got that Jake Sinclair about him. He gets involved. He looks to take the game on in the back half of the ground.
Okay. Interesting. Next up.
Who have we got next? Next up, we've got this guy.
Yeah, Matthew Jefferson.
So Matthew Jefferson. So this guy here, in my opinion, Cadman, is the guy that everyone's talking about as the key forward. Now, Carlton, if they go to 14, it depends how the other teams pick. But Jefferson is around that 12 to 15 mark. And in my opinion, Cadman catches the eye more than Jefferson, but there's a little bit of Curnow about this guy. He's agile. He uses his mobility.
Careful with that word. They use that C word, mate. This guy.
Well, there's no one bigger than me as a Curnow fan. And I'll tell you, I see he's incredibly mobile. And I think finding an overhead marking forward is very normal. Finding someone that is mobile is harder. Now, this guy will fit in at Carlton as well because he loves to take off from his set shot. So we love having a complaint that he kicks around a set shot. Jefferson is that man. He loves running off the mark and kicking it. So he'll suit in. Very light framed, 75 kgs. So he's a project. That's why Cadman's ahead of him. But he's the right height. He's going to grow. He's that wonderful height as well, 194. It's got that development there. But this kid here, in my opinion, is you shore your forward stocks up. You shore it up. You shore it up. And what's backup if that's it? If you've got Harry and Charlie and your backup is Jefferson, Banterville.
Wow. Okay. I'm very much more sold than what I was before I heard his name. That's for sure.
Yeah, and this is one where that if Carlton are at 14, obviously there's a reason. So, like we say, he's scheduled to go in them teens. So, like Lou says, D's are suspected to pick him up. They've also met with some other players we're going to talk about in a minute. Very hard to do it. I can tell you as well, speaking to a couple of list managers, they do deliberately meet people to throw you off as well. So that's why it's always intriguing when some rumours come, which we will talk about a bit later, because I suspect Carlton have done a dodgy. I don't know for sure, but I do suspect that's why some names have been linked. But Jefferson, for me, suits a need. We need a backup key forward, and why not take it now while he's there? And he's a good Vic kid.
Okay. Next up is Josh Weddle.
So we just mentioned him, a player that has been met by a host of clubs and a very late bloomer as well in the AFL. He wasn't highly fancied 2 months ago, and suddenly he's everywhere now. And he's incredibly good, Josh Weddle. He's strong in the air. I think he's got an advantage to a lot of other players like Buslinger in the terms of also this guy is an incredibly tough one-on-one defender. Incredibly tough, incredibly hard to beat. So, and I want to look at Carlton's makeup. The best defense, I thought, was with Melbourne Demons when they won the Premiership. Having a tall guy, Lewis Young, having a normal-sized key defender, Jake Lever, and then having that smaller guy that uses his pace to really hurt teams at centre-half back or at full-back in Stephen May. And that's where Weddle is. Good ball user, incredibly strong, runs a time trial like you wouldn't believe as well. Very high numbers in that. And also that just smaller frame, but doesn't lose anything because of his vertical leap. So remember Stephen May against Max King? He was losing 10 centimetres and Stephen May battered him through using his pace and his ability to read the game. That's what Josh Weddle's got, and he's a very, very tricky little customer. And I think Carlton probably, and we'll talk a bit more when we get to Buslinger, but I understand why people are saying Carlton don't need a key defender. I understand that. You can't plan on injuries. But I also would say that you're also saying that hoping they don't get injured again. And I would say that's a very, very dangerous position for Carlton in terms of longevity.
Yeah, going into tomorrow or going into the next phase of the group, an up and coming forward is certainly something that I feel like we would certainly need, but also a defender as well. Like I know right now, as we talk in this moment, everyone's healthy, but I don't know if I'm fully confident in our depth of our key position defenders just yet. You know, touch wood, Wiedering goes down. That's a big loss. We felt that too much last year. Marchbank eventually got back into the side. That was great to see. You know, can we rely on 20 games? Can you rely on anything? No, you can't. McGovern has injury issues every year. We know, we just said Marchbank. You know, we just obviously, we're bringing in Sam Durden to the list as well. I just think another young one just to have down there. I know Domakwe is developing down there as well. But yeah, this is the first name where it's got me thinking about the future of our defense.
Yeah. For me, key defenders like Lewis Young and Wheater that's your decade-long partnership. I would say that key defenders with Sam Durden is more than enough. But I would say Marchbank and McGovern, when you look at how Voss plays, when we've lost that third, and we've seen when McGovern's played, he does play a lot of time at centre half-back, and Wheatering goes and helps Lewis Young out. And you saw that in round one when Lewis Young wasn't playing and it was McDonald. You saw that formation work really well, and you saw how good Mitch McGovern was. And you saw when he went to them central positions away from that intercept, he brings that danger with him. And that's where I think Carlton need a player. And I want McGovern to be fit and I want Marchbank, but it's never happened in 2 or 3 years. And I think if the option's there and it's a bonus pick like this, why not take it? Why not take it now while it's there? Because worst case scenario, both of these guys are out of contract next year. Trade one. Do you know what I mean? Get your money back. Let someone, if McGovern, let's say, plays 18 games this year and he isn't injured and you can manage him, but Weddle's showing the legs, if you can get a second back, which you presumably given up to get this pick, why not? Is my answer. Why not?
Okay. 2 more at this range. The first one is Jacob Konstanty. I like the look and I like the name.
A lot to like about this kid, let's be honest. There's a lot to like. And this kid is lightning quick. If you want a defensive forward, tackles for days. If you want goals for days. And I agree with Andrew here. A magical boot bets like small forwards. Spot on. This guy's got that. He's 176 and he's manic pressure. But what is amazing about him is he can also snag. He also knows where the goals are. Incredible crummer and incredible on the deck and stays with his key forward. One thing that stands out for me, particularly when he's playing for his club, is that you really see he hangs around his key forward. He doesn't go wandering, which I think we're guilty of sometimes. Sometimes Mattaes and Durden always seem to be focused on what's coming next and not going, you know what, I'm going to trust someone else to make the tackle. I'm going to be here in case he doesn't take the mark. Konstanty loves living at the feet of his toes. And I think this guy here has got a bit of pedigree about him. He's got something about him. I like the way he celebrates. He's got a little bit of soccer celebration about him. He loves his football as well. And remember Rochelle, we talked about him a lot last year, saying that you need to get small forwards who are soccer players. He likes his round ball as well. So I think he suits the bill, and I think he's incredible. He's a terrific footballer.
It's a good point you made about the small forwards. I feel like, now I don't know if this was an instruction from the coaches or whatever, but certainly from the start of the year to the end of the year, I remember noticing more often than not towards the back end of the year, wherever the ball would land in our forward 50, it's like, where are the smalls? They would either not be there or they would be just somewhere else. Whereas early in the season, it was almost as if their ability to read the play was better. And again, without knowing if there was a specific instruction to cover more ground, I don't know, but it definitely stood out towards the back end of the year. Harry and Charlie going up for a mark and small forwards just not in the right position.
Mate, I couldn't agree more. I think what they do, and this brings me on to a great point with Jacob, he's been utilised a few times this year as well as a tagger against the crafty halfbacks.
Yeah.
And you've seen that a few times. Now, how many times do you watch Carlton and some small defender takes the piss? And I think
reel them off. Dawson, Jath, mate, you name them. They run off halfback, and Lachie Shoal's done it a few times. You name it. It's the halfback curse. Well, you're right. We don't have a guy.
Mate, and I think what our forwards do is they react to that and they start giving themselves a bit of time. They stand 20 metres back, give themselves a bit of space. And we saw it with Sinclair at St Kilda. Once they started to stop taking that pressure and giving themselves time, Sinclair was like, oh, you're giving me space to run into, and then start to change my body position to make you come onto me, and I handball it over the top. And before you know it, he's had 30 touches and he looks like prime Gary Ablett.
Yeah.
Konstanty has been deployed as that tagging forward, and that is what he's good at. He's a menace. He's got Jed Lamb about him when he tags. He's done a few tagging jobs on these halfbacks and really irritated them. So I really like this kid.
Okay. I like what you've said about him. Finally, Elijah Hewett. So just for those who have just tuned in, we're covering the situation if we are going to trade up, which we did mention a few months ago. This pick, or these two picks in particular, are what we might be looking to trade into. So this is the fifth player from that group.
Yeah, so trying to just give you a reason of why, I think, is the best thing. Sometimes, why would you do it? And this kid here, we're looking at players. Voss says he wants some different dimensions. And I look at our midfield and I think, what could you have some dimensions? Now, we're going to talk about some wonderful players who are in the top 10. This guy is just sliding into that 10 to 15 range, which Carlton have been linked with him as a backup if they don't get their priorities. And I can see why. This guy is very offensive, a very attack, gung-ho footballer. And I think when you look at Carlton, that is the biggest issue at our club. We don't really have a gun-ho type midfielder. Everyone likes that. And everyone says Voss wants two-way runners. I think Voss, if he's honest, has the two-way runners now. What he's trying to tell you with that outside run and that bit of zip, he needs that next layer. And you look at Geelong, you look at Richmond, you look at Melbourne. These great teams can do what we do defensively and play contested footy. They've also got a guy that just takes the piss, a tracker who they can bring on and say, right, mate, go and have a bit of fun. We'll defend for you. Bit like Messi today for Argentina. Everyone does the running for him and just says, mate, we'll get you the ball and you do your sexy little thing. Hewett here is that sexy little footballer. Defensively, the guy's turgid. But I'll tell you what, when he's got his namesake behind him, give him the ball and say, Hewett, there's a bit of field in front of you. Take the mick. And this kid here is pure class. This is the guy that you'd put $100 on in a grand final to win the Norm Smith because he turns it on.
He's the game winner. Okay.
He turns it on. He's got it. He's got it.
Okay. So for those at home, take your pick. Cowan, Jefferson, Weddle, Konstanty, or Hewett. Pom, I'll let you go last. For those of you playing at home, you go first.
It's a good selection here. There's a good reason. There's good reasons to be in 14.
I like Weddle. There's a bias. My personal bias is one catered towards a defender for the future because, yes, of course, Marchbank and McGovern and the like, they're all healthy right now. Maybe I'm living in fear, but I think a safe pick with a defender for the future who you know is going to be good enough to make the grade, or you don't really know, but you would strongly assume. I like what I heard from Weddle. So let's see. Wildy says Cowan. A few here for Hewett. Jefferson or Cowan from Lou. Jordan loves Jefferson. Peter, Hewett and Jefferson. Jefferson will go to Melbourne. Hewett, Weddle. Okay. Konstanty. I didn't know anything about Konstanty, but after your explanation about him, I did have a newfound respect for what I heard. So that was good. Weddle, 192. Great size.
Some good answers here. This is
Good
tough.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, this is hard as well because you don't know what you've got at 10. Like, it would be a lot easier if 10's a hard decision and Carlton maybe lose out on a target. It makes it a little bit easier. So we're playing guess here, but I mean, it's tough because all of them are good footballers and we like them at Blues.
So pick your one. Those 5 are available. Assuming Hollands is picked at 10, which is what he would be the favorite to go. So we pick up Hollands. Who are you picking with out of those 5? Who would you rank at the top?
God, it's tough.
You developed this affinity with these draftees, and you've spoken to a few of them as well now. So it must be a bit more difficult.
I fall in love with them all. If they were all available, I'd probably be boring here, and I'd go Hewett. I think pairing Hewett and Hollands together, suddenly Carlton have got huge options, and I'd back the back end of the draft to get some projects for where we need. But I just think Hewett's too good. I think offensively, he's good. I hate to do it to Lachie, though. Lachlan Cowan, he's been my boy for ages. But After complaining we have too many halfbacks, could I bring another halfback in?
All right. That's good. It's good to know. Okay, so the time has come, the moment we've all been waiting for. Pick 10. Is it safe to assume that no matter what, we're going to the draft with pick 10 tomorrow? We wouldn't trade it now, right? It would be done already? Or is that not too late?
I could see an option where Carlton trade down. I could. And I think it would be because they've heard something or they've got an inclination that someone's there. I don't think they will do. But particularly if Status slides, I could see Carlton maybe looking at that option and thinking, well, if we're interested, and let's just say Carlton are interested in a midfielder, they maybe say, you know what, let's slide down and maybe risk losing Hollands to Dogs, because I presume Dogs will probably want him. But then if Buslinger's on there, they have met a lot with Buslinger as well. And you do look at the Doggies, and a key defender does scream what they need as well. They've never quite got either end right at the moment, with the exception of Norton. So Carlton might chance it. We saw me do that in the live draft when we did that with Newey and Lekdog. I did that and I had a look. So you could do that. And if Austin did that, I'd be like, okay, maybe me and Austin are the same person. Because I took a chance and I thought it was worth the risk. If the draft board looked like it did on our live draft watch along, I would probably say trade down, because there is a huge chance that you get who you want 2 picks later, 3 picks later.
So that situation of trading hypothetically 10 for 14 and 17, or is that what it would be?
Yeah, I mean, if someone's desperate for starters, if starters is suddenly there at Carlton's pick, where I can see why starters is sliding, very, very good at everything. What is his main position, though? Where Ollie Hollands is elite at one with good at something else. So I can see, if I was a list manager, I don't like it when I look at a player and I go, if you had a gun to my head, where is his best position? And I don't think I could tell you that with starters 100% unequivocally. I think I'd be like, oh, but he could play here. Oh, he could play here. Where if I'm in my top 10 picks, I want to pick a guy and say, he's my X for the next decade, with the scope of maybe being YZ. And I think if he's there, suddenly Carlton are laughing and going, you know what? He's slipped. And there will be someone who goes mental and takes someone way too early. There always is.
Yeah. All right. We are now at pick 10. We're about to talk about 5 players, most of which you've probably heard of. Pom, I'm going to say most of these guys, I think 4 of the 5 of them you've actually interviewed, maybe 3.
3 of the 5, yeah.
3 of the 5 you've actually interviewed. So there's a lot of good information here. Let's start from the bottom and let you run the show. So first up, Mattaes Phillipou. Love the name, can I just say?
I love this kid.
Wait, before you go on, so for those at home, Hollands has been mentioned by Pommy to me since like March. He messages me after the Phillipou interview. He's like, mate, Phillipou's the one.
Mate, kid blew me away.
Yeah?
I was, if it was a date, I would have married him. I was starstruck. This is what's going to might help Carlton out, because he comes across arrogant. And I would say that this is very Australian modern day sports culture. The Australian sports culture I know is you tell me every day how good you are and then you batter my teams. The Australian sports culture that's coming into the system now is a little bit be humble, a little bit. We don't like it. And I disagree. Fucking tell me how good you are and then show me.
And show me. Yeah.
I want you to spit on my face and tell me I deserved it. And that is what Mattaes is, that guy. He said that one of the questions we asked all these guys was, if you were the list manager, where would you go? And he didn't even think and goes, with my mindset, my ability to learn, my hunger and my appetite, pick one. And I was just like, what number do you want to play? I was like, my next question was, number do you want? But now, will Mattaes slide there? Do I think? I think Essendon would be absolutely moronic to not do it. But there is heavy rumours that this kind of bold expression of his that he wanted to play in a big team, wants to play in the big games. I can 100% guarantee you, whichever club drafts him, unless they trade him, he is staying there forever. And I don't care if that team is out of Mongolia, if it's in my hometown, if it's in Tasmania, if it's on Mars. That kid here has a dream of being a one-club champion, and he's sticking to it. And I'll tell you what, he's dragging whatever shithouse team he goes to the top as well. That's what scares me. When I heard him speak, I was like, he's dragging them there. He's dragging them. He ain't going to do a JHF and kick the toys out of the pram. He's going to be in training and going, we're winning games. I ain't losing. And I loved him. Essendon have to take him, but there is huge noise. Why he's on this list is a lot of draft experts have him sliding because of them rumours of the arrogance has put them off. And history shows, as much as we can say, I'd love to say it's 100% he's going to Essendon and make Essendon fans happy. It's against my very nature, but I'd love to say it. History shows how they go in them interviews makes them slide. And Robertson, great example, top 10 in everyone's draft, went 21. Happens. Mattaes, will he be a victim? He's got a lot of bad press. And I'll say this, I think it's disgraceful, the press he's got, because I had the privilege of he spent an hour and 20 minutes with me.
Wow.
One of the nicest young men I've ever spoke to, who was attentive, gave me some respect and some time, never made me feel awkward. Absolute champion footballer this is. This kid will win a Brownlow. Guarantee it.
Oh, wow. Of the interviews you did, I saw a snippet of this one. I think he kind of reminded me a little bit of Liam Stocker. Just the way he spoke, the way he cared, his empathy. I don't know. There was something about him. And then when you add that competitive nature as well, I don't know. It just, I warmed to him. Maybe it's the Greek in me as well. A little biased, but yeah.
It gave me Tiger Woods, Roger Federer vibes. And a lot of people class it as arrogance. And I'm like, listen to him speak. Every time he told me he was good, he told me what he wasn't good at. And then he told me why he was working on it, how he was going to rectify it, what he needed to rectify said thing. And that is a champion. That is a guy that's going to come in there and back his own abilities, go, I'm best 22, but how do I get best 10, best 5? And I'll tell you what, someone else talked like Phillipou did without the confidence, and that's Sam Walsh. And that's Philippou's Sam Walsh. He's Sam Walsh, but he isn't going to queue up in the line to get into the BNF. He's going to walk in, head held high. I belong here. And that is the mentality in our system. It's going to be sexy. It's going to sexy because the media, exactly like Manny says, they've come for him hard. But I tell you what, if you speak to them, I felt so sorry for him because I could see it upset him. When we talked, you could see it was upsetting him that people have this impression of him. And I can tell you, for what my word is to you guys watching at home and girls, he's not like that. He's not arrogant. He's a lovely young man, and I wish him the best. If he goes to Essendon, fucking good luck to you. I wish him the best.
That's awesome. The next name is arguably the most popular. No, it is. It's the most popular name. Oliver Hollands. So this has just been a guy. As soon as the talk started about him, it seemed to snowball. You've been on him from very early in the piece. Talk to us. Why? What's the deal? Why is he so highly touted for us?
So what I've said about Phillipou, I went into this interview and I was like, shit. Number 2 and number 1 in my draft order have now slid. Right? This kid here is everything I said about Mr. Phillipou, right? But he's likable, the way he presents it. He's fun, he's charismatic, he has a bit of jokes. Mattaes, I can tell, has got no time for bullshit. He isn't going to do nana jokes with Uncle Pom. Ollie Hollands will do nana jokes with Uncle Pom. And I like that. One of his answers that really turned me on was, we asked what you're going to do in 15 years' time when you're retired. And he said he wanted to be an impact off the field in the Carlton community. And I was like, not many of them said that. Only Bailey Humphreys and this guy were really on that. They're really on. I also want to do things for you guys, and I want to be part of the community, and I want to be part of the fix, and I want to be part of something special. And why Ollie Hollands as a footballer is so incredible is there's a big misconception he's a wing. And if you watch the interview, we had 15 minutes basically laughing that everyone thinks he's a pure wingman when he's worked incredibly hard on his inside game and played a lot of inside time with that. And it's incredible listening to his story. He knows Elijah's had some injury issues and the stuff he's learned from that on game day prep that he's brought in. So we've basically got a guy who's listening to his brother and learning his brother's mistakes before they happen. And you see it. This guy ran a better time in both time trials than Sam Walsh. And remember, this time in 3 years ago, everyone was getting excited because Sam Walsh could run. This kid can run. This kid's probably where Sam Walsh's running capacity was after his first year. It's that good. Wow. It's long-term. He plays nearly 95% of games as well. So that's incredibly high for his position. It was great when we talked about COVID. Now, a lot of people have been saying about, injury prone. His brother's injury prone. If you actually watch the interview, 20 minutes in, he talks about COVID. His brother had injuries. And he was like, you know what I need to improve? I need to improve my cardiovascular work. I need to make sure I'm fit. And this kid just ran for a year. And if you actually go back to his under 16 year, he wasn't a runner. He wasn't an elite runner. He is now, and he isn't an elite runner. He's insane. Good on the ball. A lot of rumors about his kicking efficiency. The kid kicks nearly 90% of the time. It's long kicks. He sets up play. Defensively incredibly strong. Everywhere you play this kid, and he is a champion human being. Ollie Hollands, if you're watching this, because you said you would, mate, I love him already. I love him already. He is someone, if he comes to Carlton, Charlie Kerno who?
Could he play next year?
Mate, he could play round one. He could play probably next week.
Wow.
He's very good. He's a student of the game. Very impressive young man. And he's a fan of us. And hearing him talk about the pain of being a Carlton fan, what turns me on is, why do we like Matt Cottrell? Because he's one of us. Because when he plays, he's not the best footballer, but I'll tell you what, he finds a way. Because it's like we're playing. This guy's an incredibly talented Matt Cottrell who he wants to win a flag. He's sick of losing. Like, I love the conversation when we were talking about he can't wait to play Collingwood. Do you know what I mean? And we had a bit of banter between us because a lot of these guys are Collingwood fans. And I kept joking, I want to hang up on them. And he was like, oh, you've got to because they're Collingwood fans. Like, mate, honestly, this guy, you get the ball outside to him, and in 2 years' time, when he puts the size on and he plays on the ball as well, good footballer.
All right. I like it. We've got three more. Next up is Jed Buslinger.
Here he is. The Smoky in the draft. Cal Toomey has thrown this in. I don't know if he's doing it for banter now. I suspect Nick Austin has a history at Dogs. We go back to the famous Jai Caldwell rumours. They came from the Doggies. They didn't come from anywhere else but the Doggies. So Nick Austin has a habit of not saying he does it. It's a speculation, but reading into it, the Doggies have never done that since he's left. That maybe a name hits the media that we might not be looking at, but I'm here to tell you why. So, Mitch McGovern, Marchbank, do you trust they're going to be here every day for the next 12 months? Do you expect round 23, they're going to be fully fit like they were round 12? You can't. You can be blind and be blind faith, but is there any proof they will be? No. Jed Buslinger is the best key position defender in this draft. He's ready to go round one. Right. And this kid here is an intercept genius. He's ready to go from that third position. If Carlton wanted an intercept, this kid could do it. Do they want a key position player in a year? This kid has a huge ceiling. He's got Wheater in vibes. Do you want another Wheater in? And do you want to, if Mitch McGovern plays 15 to 20 games and Marchbank, do you want to cash in on key position defenders? Because they're not regular. These guys are good. So if they can play 15 games, do you take this guy and cash him in? There's probably a good argument to do that.
Wow. So this is the best key position defender in the draft.
But by a fair way.
Wow. Okay. How much better is he? We just spoke about Weddle, right? So what's the difference between getting a Weddle a little later as opposed to getting a Buslinger?
Well, I mean, this guy's 196 already, 85 kegs.
Right.
He's bigger. He is a pure key in the traditional sense of the word. He's incredibly composed as well. He hasn't got many weaknesses. He's very, 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 probably a higher footy IQ, a better read on the ball. He's got all them traits. Interesting enough, his draft profile is almost identical to Wheater's, and you can see that Wheater-in vibe from him, that he likes to beat his man physically. He likes to make the contact early, which is what Wheater-in does incredibly well. It's a very understated part of Wheater-in's game is he initiates contact very quickly. Buslinger does the same. So do I think Carlton will do it? Hell no. I'm only here to make an argument that all the arguments I hear is Carlton get lots of injuries. I've tried to give you a list manager's argument there that there's probably a bit of future currency if you take him now and the best guy there. And there's also a little bit of currency there for him being ready to go. He is ready to go probably round one. He's like a Wheater-in type body. He could probably play.
All right. I'll come back to you with the question about this scenario after we've done the 5. But we'll go to the next player, which is Cam Mackenzie. Tell us about him.
So we have the Tassie tax where you're always drafted 10 to 15 picks later than your talent suggests, because I think AFL list managers go to Tassie once on a weekend and forget it exists and they just don't rank them. And then you've got the playing for the best player in the draft tax. And unfortunately for Mr. Cam Mackenzie, he is the guy that makes Ashcroft look the bollocks. It's him. It's him. Now, in my opinion, the safest midfielder to pick in this draft is the guy who gets the ball out for the best player, because Ashcroft isn't going to be Ashcroft for Brisbane. Collingwood did an amazing job, and why I always thought Nick Dacos would be the best player in the draft over JHF is JHF can't play that role he did of bullying kids in the AFL. These are men. So, yeah, he might be a little arsehole and he might be strong, but he ain't strong when he's coming up against Mitch Robinson. He ain't strong when he's coming up against Cripps. Do you know what I mean? These are full men, and they put you in your place very quickly. So he has to find another avenue. Cam Mackenzie's entire caper is see ball, get ball, feed it off to a better player. See ball, get ball, feed it off to a better player. Half South African, which is wonderful. Do you know what I mean? As well, he's got that real travelled mentality. There's no ego in this guy. This guy is
sold.
This guy is a role player for his club and the best role player in the draft. Might not be a sexy moniker to have, and you probably don't put it on your CV, but the most balanced midfielder in the AFL draft this year, the most well-rounded, most easiest to acclimatise, and the closest to getting what you're seeing now in the AFL is Cam Mackenzie. So for me, if Voss is looking for points of difference, maybe not Cam Mackenzie. If he's looking for reliability, though, and what he always talks about, you know, that will to get better, it's this gentleman here. Cam Mackenzie is staring you in the face.
Interesting. With pick 10, what's your, I mean, I don't know what I would do, but would you go for the one player that has the highest ceiling, or do you want a guy like this? What you've described right now sounds like a George Hewett type, who may not be the sexiest footballer, but fuck, he's efficient, fuck, he's reliable, and he most, if not every time, uses the first option and the right option.
I think I said to Jaxon Binns today when I said, who do you model your game off? And he said Camden McIntosh. And I was like, if you told me that 10 years ago, I would have vomited. But I was like, as an old man, it turns me on. You've picked one of the most consistent people in the AFL that gives 7 out of 10 every game ratings. That turns me on, that your aspirations are always be consistent, not be flash in the pan. for me, I think you bank talent at 10. Where we are now, the list is the list. So to me, the list is the list. 22 players here, if they're all fit, we know can compete. We know with a year's progression should be fighting for the title. And Vossi is bullish. There's no ceiling on this group. So I think you bank talent. I think pick 10 comes around. If a guy that should be 5th and 6th, who we are coming up to in a minute, you take it. You take it. You maybe throw the course. I don't think there is a... I love Cam Mackenzie. I love him. But I think Carlton need something. That's what we need. I agree with Voss. We need something. I don't think anyone was thinking of the midfield in the draft as well. Everyone thought the midfield was complete. I love the fact that Voss said 1 to 2 people to give us something different. And I was like, that is where it went wrong last year. We didn't have the personnel to play the game that the people were criticising. And Dow should be it. But let's give Dow a challenge. And that is what's exciting me here with this group. But Mackenzie, I tell you what, you'd love a Mackenzie. You'd love a Mackenzie in your side. He's brilliant. And I do hope he goes to St Kilda, to be honest, because they've put a lot of work in him in their NGA. And I would be gutted for St Kilda. They have built this kid into being an incredible footballer. But will he slide there? He's been very unfancied, though. When you play with Ashcroft, you get forgotten about. And unfortunately, any other draft year, he's top 5.
Interesting. All right. Well, the final player for pick 10 that we're going to talk about this evening is Bailey Humphrey, a very popular name. Not sure if he's going to make it here to pick 10 based off what everyone's been saying. But, Pommy, you've spoken to him. What's the vibe?
Well, we got the world exclusive. He pretty much said he was going to Gold Coast.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, Bailey, you're not going to say it. But there is great rumours now that for some reason Gillbee has been flown into Gold Coast, which is very interesting. Do you know what I mean? Very interesting. Are they pulling a shifty? Are they being serious? But this guy here, Bailey Humphrey, let's just talk about, he experienced suicide and was very open in my interview about his best mate committing suicide.
Wow. His
own mental health issues as young as 14 and the awareness of that. And this kid here he's like a 40-year-old man. The way I wish I was 18 and thought like him, where he just wants to encourage people to talk and to communicate and, you know, to be the best version of themselves and realize it's okay to make mistakes, but, you know, ask for help. And tell you what, I love Bailey. Him and Hollands have been two of my favorites for a long time. And he's an incredible footballer. On a football sense, a lot has been made about his kicking efficiency. I would ask the AFL to find me anyone who plays that role who goes at a high 80 elite percent. They don't. He plays a very Dustin Martin 2017 role. That high half forward, his job is to change the game. He is very Dustin Martin that they throw him at full forward. He's very capable of doing that. They pinch hit him on the ball. I think the one thing Carlton lack is that game change player. That game change like a Dustin Martin, like a Petraka, who can do it out of habit, not out of necessity. Bailey Humphrey, in my opinion, when we do this draft in 10 years' time, will be top 3. I think 1. In my heart of hearts, I think 1 on talent alone.
He's that good. Interesting,
what this kid's got, you can't teach.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you know, obviously shocking news and a shocking situation that he's had to live through. But obviously with that comes, you know, with pain comes strength. And the fact that he's had the real world, the real darkness of what the world can be, hit him in the face at such a young age. Curious to see. And you know, obviously from you speaking to him as well, he seems to have a real appreciation, a real grounding of life.
This kid ain't here to fuck about. Do you know what I mean? This kid ain't here to have a good time and be on Insta. This kid here is to have a career and excel because he realizes from a very young age this can be quickly taken away from you. He talks about the opportunity and how incredibly grateful he is to have this opportunity and how it was interesting. He was one of the few that didn't say he was nervous. He was enjoying the experience and feeling privileged to be in it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a beautiful mantra to have. And he was someone that when I interviewed him straight away, my brain was like, in our group, Jesus, you'd fit in. Do you know what I mean? You'd fit in straight away with that kind of mentality that he just wants to get down and work. And the wonderful work he does as well with Mindful Australia. Already he's an ambassador for them. At 17 years old, he played 58 holes of golf. Do you know what I mean? Raising 10K for charity. A day before my interview, he's heavily into that. Already a spokesperson for young men's mental health. Honestly, wherever he goes, credit. We need more gentlemen like Bailey Humphrey who's willing to talk about our emotions. What a hero. At 18 years old, man. 18 years old, I was all about beers and drowning my sorrows in nights out. This kid here is talking about sharing feelings, and what a player. Wonderful footballer, wonderful human being.
Okay. Very well said. So, again, for the last time tonight, for those playing at home, let's go through the 5 names that we've mentioned for pick 10, and you can pick who you would pick. So if you're at home, you've got Phillipou, Hollands, Buslinger, Humphrey, and Mackenzie. Who are you picking if you're at home? Tell you what, mate, that Phillipou boy. That Phillipou boy. Hollands, though, I feel like Hollands would fit right in. There would be no issue with climatizing to the group, obviously, because he knows what it's about. I am also mindful of the whole getting too caught up in drafting someone just because they go for Carlton. However, based off the way he speaks, based off the way he connects, his humility, and obviously busting the myth as well. I thought he was just a winger. That's how I knew him. I don't know anything about these draftees. And I was just mindful of picking a winger with pick 10, like a specialist, because we did that a few years ago with Lachie O'Brien. And, I'm just thinking, is he that good? You want to make sure that, pick 10 can't get it wrong, cannot afford to get it wrong. I know that that's a very common phrase that every club will be saying, but, the reality is our drafting over the last 5 to 6 years, like there's been, 2015, huge tick. And then afterwards, there's a few that have already left us, and there's a few that we're still waiting for them to really prove themselves. So I don't know, but I do like Hollands. You guys at home, let's see how you voted. Dale says Hollands. Got Humphrey is the only answer from Dylan. A few here for Phillipou. Wildy loves Hollands. Tony loves Humphrey or Hollands. We've got Holland, Mackenzie or Phillipou. We need to pick one. No, it's hard. We need to pick one. A few Hollands.
Just say them all.
Yeah, pick one.
I'm with you. Just say them all.
It's so hard to split them. So hard. What have we got? Hollands. All right. I'm going to go Hollands. But tell you what, if Phillipou's there, wouldn't be upset about it. Pommy, you? All 5 are available. Who are you picking?
Honestly, hand on heart, Oliver Hollands.
Yeah?
And just bearing in mind, I'll be honest, total disclosure, at the start of this experiment of talking to them, I was 1 Humphrey, 2 Hollands, 3 Mattaes, and Hollands shot up. I didn't think he would get any better. Humphrey was brilliant. Mattaes just said all the right things. It's the kind of people that I want to work with and be around, who are not scared to say they're good, but also not scared to say they're not good at something. And I think that's that's what no one's listening with Mattaes. He tells you what he's not good at, but everyone chooses, but he said he was pick 1. Yeah, but he told you. He told you. He told you. So for me, if you've ever worked in development, Mattaes isn't scary. Mattaes is something that you can work with very easy. But Ollie Hollands, just another level. His football alone is very good. And we are in AFL 1990s culture where we're looking at kicking efficiency and kick mark. No one plays kick mark football anymore. You watch how bad St Kilda will go next year with kick mark specialists. They'll be pantsed. Look at how pantsed the Eagles have been. 2 pressured game now. They don't play percentages anymore. They play a very expansive game. And Ollie Hollands is that modern day player. Wingers are starting to come in vogue. This time, I predict 2025, we'll start getting pure wingers at pick 1s, pick 2s, pick 3s. They're starting to get more important. People are starting to notice. So for me, Hollands, he's a very good footballer. That kicking efficiency, throw that in the bin. Mickey Mouse. He's a meters gained footballer. He puts you back in position. And that is what he's about. And it was great to hear his eyes light up when we were talking about football dreams. And he says, bursting out and getting the ball from Walshy and kicking it to Mackay. You can see him doing it. He's ready-made. He's one of us. The passion. He's got a hunger to learn. Absolute brilliant. Absolute brilliant.
Love it. Okay. Well, that is the 2022 draft preview here on the Blue Broad YouTube channel. It's good to be back. Pommy, it's great to be back, mate. This is where it all really began.
Mate, this is it. It's always hot. It's lovely to come back here. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had a couple of weeks on my own, but this is home, isn't it? It's like just coming back home.
Well, we'll see you all tomorrow. We've got the draft. What are we doing?
Mate, depressing, isn't it? It's here.
It's here. Yeah, we'll be live tomorrow. See you at the draft. Good to see everybody back. Bring the popcorn tomorrow, and we'll see who we're going to pick up with our pick. I think the first 30 picks are announced tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be one of them things where you're looking at the time slot. It's like 7, isn't it? So 7 till 10 for 19 and a bit picks.
It is what it is. We've got to do what we've got to do, mate.
like me, Lekdog, and Ian managed to do the full 80 picks in just under 2 hours, and the AFL are going to be lucky to get to pick 20 in that time.
It's amazing. Well, we'll fill in the time. Have a good evening, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow.